here in front of me. So it's already actually starting to have some flowers on it, which means that I'll have tomatoes starting to grow really soon, which is super exciting. I have here behind me, I have a bunch of herbs that I usually grow on my windowsill in my kitchen, which gets a lot of light, which the plants really do love. So I have some thyme here. It smells really nice. And then you can just pick these off and put them into your food. So it's great to have a fresh supply of herbs. I also have, this is parsley. It's the same thing, it's really thick. Should probably thin it out a little bit, but same thing. You could just pick off the leaves when you're cooking and put that directly in your food. I have cilantro, which is one of my favorites. I love it in Mexican food, other things. So it looks very similar to the parsley. And then finally, I won't reach for that one, but the big one in the back there is basil, which is delicious. So if you're just joining, my name is Anna. I'm with the Office for Sustainability, and today we're talking about growing your own food at home and environmental wellness. So feel free to ask questions throughout, but today I will be talking about some of the benefits of growing your own food at home, as well as doing a couple demonstrations. So I'll be showing you how to read the information on a seed packet and what it's telling you on how to plant that seed. And I'll also be showing you how to transplant a seedling into a bigger pot. Hi, Vanessa. Hi, everyone. So if you're just joining, my name is Anna. I'm with the Office for Sustainability, and I'm part of the community garden at Sheridan College. So I think we'll get started here in a minute. It's a beautiful day here, but I'm sitting in the shade because it was really hot in the sun, so I had to relocate to a shadier spot. So welcome to my backyard. All right, I think we'll get started. So as I said, I'm Anna Pautler. I work with the Office for Sustainability at Sheridan College. And normally we would be having our community garden going this summer, but unfortunately, due to the COVID pandemic, we're all home working remotely and studying remotely. So what we've been doing this year is, instead of having people participate in a community garden on campus where everybody gets a plot and you can grow whatever you want, what we're doing instead is we have a virtual community garden. So if you go on Central, the Sheridan Central page, you'll find under Sheridan Life, the community garden page. So we're posting weekly tips on how to grow your own veggies at home. And we also have a Facebook group that if you want to join, there you can post pictures of what you're growing, ask questions of other gardeners if you're not quite sure what to do, or maybe if you have some pests or disease that you want to ask some other gardeners about how to identify and what to do. That's a great place for that. So so tune in on Central there for the weekly tips and join our Facebook group to engage with other gardeners. So today I'm going to be talking about some of the benefits of growing your own veggies at home, and I'm going to be doing a couple demonstrations, one on how to plant from seed and one how to transplant a seedling into a bigger pot. So in terms of growing your own food at home, there's a lot of environmental benefits. For example, you can learn how food is grown. You can spend time outside, get exercise, fresh air. You can connect with nature, all those great things. So physical benefits there as well in terms of getting exercise and fresh air. Also, you're growing typically healthy food like fruits and veggies and herbs. So everything is really fresh and really healthy and good for you physically as well. So what are some other benefits that people think come from growing your own food at home. There's potentially a financial benefit as well. What are some reasons that people are interested in growing their own food? I'm curious to hear from you. So if you want to participate, you could just comment and I'll see your comments come up. So yeah, so by growing your own fruit or organic food, that's a good one. Being mindful about the food I'm eating and cooking with, for sure. So it really helps you understand where food comes from and how it's grown. Actually, how much effort goes into growing food. I have a whole appreciation for farmers since I started growing some of my own veggies at home. It really takes a lot of effort, and sometimes squirrels eat some of my tomatoes, which is pretty upsetting. But when you see how much effort and energy goes into actually growing food at home, you kind of get a whole new appreciation for it. So in terms of what to grow at home, I mean, you can start simple. You can just, buy a tomato plant from the nursery if that's something that you like, or you can, get creative and try something new. So for example, you could try growing okra or something else that you might be interested. It's really a huge learning experience to grow your own food at home. And sometimes it takes a bit of trial and error to figure out what works and what doesn't. So if you're just tuning in, we're talking about growing your own food at home. And thank you for Student Union for featuring this, and for the Human Resources Wellness team for putting this environmental wellness blog and live event together. Really appreciate being involved. It's been fun. So as I said, I've got this tomato plant here. So this one actually was purchased from a nursery. It's starting to put out flowers. Hopefully, I'm not sure if you can see this, but there's a flower right here. So that will turn into a tomato. So it's got a ways to go. Typically, because of our climate here in Canada, you either have to start tomato plants from seed, kind of, March, and you start them inside. You can grow them just in sunlight or under grow lamps. And then slowly, after the danger of frost is over, which is usually after May 2 for a weekend or so, you can start slowly transitioning them outside. It's what gardeners call hardening off. So what happens is the first day you bring them outside for an hour, get them used to being outside. They're gentle little plants at that point. They need a little bit of tender love and care. So you don't want to expose them to full day of blasting sun because that will really damage their leaves. So you just take them out for an hour, and then another couple hours the next day, maybe bringing them inside after each exposure to the outdoors. And then once kind of they're big enough and have been hardened off, then and they're in big pots like this one, then they're happy to stay outside for the rest of the summer. So me personally, we do all our veggies in pots, but you can grow your own veggies on a garden or directly in your garden. If you have raised beds, you can even just do it on a balcony in pots. So you don't really need a lot of space. This plant will likely put on quite a bit of fruit, tomatoes. So we'll probably have quite a bit of tomatoes all summer long. Another plant that I have here, this is a watermelon plant. So these ones are viney, which means that they'll really spread out. So I'm gonna have to either put up some kind of trellis, or on my deck up here, which you can't see behind me, I might try to kind of secure it to the deck to manage how it's growing, because it'll really get big, and you can't tell from this little guy, but he's gonna get really big, or she, and just kind of spread out. So I want to control where it's growing, and maybe put some kind of trellis up or something. You'll notice that my tomato plant is in a tomato cage. This helps the tomato plant kind of be supported and not be weighted down by all the fruit and leaves. So if you're just tuning in, my name's Anna, and we're talking about growing your own veggies at home and what are some of the personal wellness benefits of that, as well as environmental benefits of growing your own food. So we have a question. What's the secret to grow vegetables in pot? All my veggies die in the pot, but grow well in the soil, but animals eat the fruits. That's a really good question. So you want to make sure that the pot is the right size for the plant. So depending on the plant, you know, like a big plant like this one really requires a big pot. So if you have it in if I had this big plant in a tiny pot like this, it wouldn't do very well because the roots would get really bound up. So size of the pot is important. Also, what kind of soil are you using? For my plants, we just buy the regular potting soil, which is a triple mix of black earth, peat moss, and some kind of compost, usually manure. So the triple mix soil is a really good quality to be using. Also, are you fertilizing? A lot of times you should be fertilizing your veggies about every 2 weeks. So you can just use a standard off-the-shelf fertilizer like Miracle Grow, or buy some natural fertilizer like manure or compost. So that's really important too. Unfortunately, but the animals love the fresh veggies as much as we do. So I have the same problem with squirrels, and I think there's some raccoons living nearby. So they love to eat my veggies. I found that bone meal or blood meal work really well. So that's actually a fertilizer as well. So you can put it into the soil and it seems to kind of keep them away. Otherwise, like a physical barrier, like a cage or something around the plant can keep the animals out as well. I hope that helps a little bit. And then somebody else had a question. Other than the cage, how do you manage the tomatoes from it breaking all the other branches? So there's different types of plants. There's some that really put on a lot of branches. And so if you want to control kind of how big and bushy the plant gets, one thing you can do is pinch off the little suckers. So you'll see that in between the branches and a little nook, it's probably too tiny for you to see, but kind of in the crook of the branch, there'll be a new branch that's growing. So if you really want to not have this huge unwieldy plant that breaks, what you could do is just pinch those off, and then the plant will put more energy towards the existing branches and fruit. So I hope that helps. All right, so what we're going to talk about next is how to plant from seeds. So here I just have a little cilantro packet of seeds that I bought from the grocery store. So you can buy seeds from grocery stores, nurseries, a bunch of places have them. They're usually in a rack near the front of the store. And it's like $1 or $2 to buy a pack of seeds. The organic ones are a little bit more expensive, but it's very cheap and you get a lot of seeds out of this. So just kind of explain how this works. So on the back of this, there are instructions, and they're pretty important. So this one says it's 60 to 90 days, which means that in about 2 to 3 months, you'll have a full grown plant, 46 centimeters height. So that's how tall it gets. It says depth 0.6 centimeters. So what that depth is referring to is how deep into the soil you should be planting the seed. And that's important because you don't want to bury it so deep that the plant then has to make its way through all that soil to try to, when it germinates, to try to reach the light. So that's an important one to look at. And then the last piece of information is, it says thin 30 centimeters. So ideally, the plants should be about 30 centimeters apart from each other. So when you're first starting, you can put a whole bunch of seeds in at once, and then you might not get all of them to germinate, meaning that they all might not come up. If they do all come up, that's fantastic, and then you can thin them out by pulling out, kind of pick the healthiest ones to keep and pull out the other ones to thin them out. And then you'll have, so these, obviously I didn't thin this one out because you'll see they're not 30 centimeters apart. There's a lot of stems in here. But I really like cilantro, so we're probably going to use this over the next couple weeks, and I'll just thin it out and eat it in my food. So what are some I want to know what some veggies and herbs and things that people are growing at home, or what are you interested in growing? I'll show you what these seeds look like. So they're pretty big, actually. So cilantro is also called coriander. Coriander is the seed, and that's what's crushed into to make dried coriander. Otherwise, what we call cilantro is the leaves, which is what you would buy from the grocery store. So I'm just going to take one of these guys, and I'll just show you how to plant it. Careful not to lose it. So somebody says, I was growing tomatoes for a little while, and then I couldn't manage it anymore. I'm sorry. I don't know what problem you were having in terms of maybe it breaking, you said earlier. Happy to try to help. Somebody's growing lots of herbs, basil, dill, chives, thyme, parsley. That's great. Herbs I find are really easy to grow, especially if you have them inside. You don't get that problem of animals breaking them or eating them. But so there's these little cell packs. Usually they're from commercial nurseries, but so my husband works in agriculture or plant biology, so he brings these home for me. But if you don't have cell packs like this, you could just use a little pot, or you can even use egg cartons. So here I have compostable egg cartons that you can use to start your seeds. So this would be something that you use like if you want to start your own tomatoes from seed. You can use that. So all you do is you want to make sure that the soil is nice and moist or wet. And then you just make a little hole, put the seed in, and then just cover it up. So seeds at this stage, they don't really need light. All they really need is moisture. So all you want to do is make sure that this stays moist. So just kind of check on it every day. If it's in a really sunny spot, there's not a lot of soil here, so it will dry out really quickly. So just kind of keep an eye on it and just give it tiny bits of water to make it moist. And then I think the seed packet should also say, okay, this one doesn't. Oh, it says in the description. So it says seedlings will emerge in 14 to 21 days. So 2 to 3 weeks, I should see a little plant coming up. Usually I find it's much sooner than that. Just seeing that in the comments. So treatment was a huge problem for the tomatoes. I don't think I was treating it on a regular basis. Okay. In terms of fertilizer, I think. Yeah, so you have to be careful. You don't want to give it too much fertilizer. Just really follow the instructions on the box really carefully. Also, I should mention there are tons of resources out there. There's tons of websites, books, Facebook groups. So don't feel like you have to do it all by yourself. There's a lot of knowledge out there, and you can ask other people for help, or ask them, what am I doing wrong? So including our Facebook group. Welcome to join there. So that's it. That's the easiest thing. You just put the seed in there and it should emerge in a few days. So we have some other comments. People are growing dill, tarragon, chives. I think that's supposed to say basil and rhubarb. I have rhubarb actually in my garden that we inherited from a previous landowner or homeowner. So I've already harvested it once, and it's huge this year. So I think I can get at least one more harvest out of it. And I put it in my strawberry rhubarb crisp, and it's amazing. My herbs tend to die often, so I'm often replacing them. What can I do to make them survive? So I think maybe the two biggest things are light and water. So you want to make sure that they have a good light. So the herbs that I have usually sit on my windowsill in my kitchen, and it's south facing. It's really bright. They get a ton of sun, but I basically have to water them every single day because they dry out like crazy. They just from all the sun, they heat up and they do really well there, but they do dry out. So make sure that you're watering it frequently, and that they're getting enough sun. So they wouldn't do too well in a very shady part of the house. So I'd say those are the two things to look out for. All right, so the other thing I wanted to show everybody is how you transplant into a bigger pot. So I think I might have to kind of move away from the computer, but I'll speak up. Hopefully you can still hear me. Otherwise, you can just see. So I've got this pot all ready to go here. So this pot has rocks in the bottom to try to help some of the drainage. And then it just has that triple mix soil in it. So what you want to do is kind of loosen the pot a little bit. This would be the same thing if you were to buy this at a nursery or garden center or grocery store. It would come in a little pot like this, and they can't stay in pots like this because they would basically outgrow it. So they need to go in a bigger pot so that the roots can get bigger as the plant grows as well. Otherwise they get root bound and they would not be very happy. So this one is actually in peat moss, not in soil. And it's very crumbly. So I'm going to put on my gloves here and try to get it out without damaging the roots. Usually they come out in one big chunk. Probably going to make a mess here. There we go. So you have to be gentle, but you don't have to be super, super gentle. But there it is. So there's the root ball. It was doing quite well in this pot. It's not overgrown the pot yet. What happens is when they get root bound, is the roots will start circling around and around and around, and you'll find that they'll come out in like one giant thick mass of roots, which means that the roots didn't have enough room in that pot. Then you just make a big hole in the middle of this pot. You usually want to make the hole a lot bigger than what the plant is, just so you can fill in the space. You can always, fill in the space. You can't get it deeper after you've put it in. And then I'm just moving the soil so that it fills in the space, and then kind of just gently pressing down around it. There we go. That's it. And then typically you would just give it a bit of the water. And another tip I have is when you're watering, especially in the middle of a really hot day, make sure that you're getting to the base of the plant rather than on the leaves, because you really want that water to go down into the soil and not, evaporate off the leaves or even damage the leaves. The water can really heat up on the leaves and damage them. So water to the base of the plant rather than, from the top. Also, you might think that you have watered really well. The soil might look really dark and wet, but if you just kind of poke your finger in there, you might see that under a centimeter or two, it's actually really dry. So especially with really, really dry soil, what can happen is that the soil really compresses into like a dry lump, and it takes a while for the water to actually permeate through. So what I do is I will water once, and sometimes if it's really dry, the water, you'll see it just kind of sits there for a little while. And then once the water has actually absorbed into the soil, then a few minutes later, I'll water again, and maybe even again if it was really, really dry. So that's just a tip that I have to make sure that that you're watering enough and that you're getting the water as deep into the pot as you can. So if you're transferring a plant that is root bound, should you gently massage the roots to encourage them to branch out before planting in the new pot, or just put it right in? Yeah, I mean, you want to be pretty, fairly gentle. You can loosen them up a little bit. Once the plant is in its new big pot, it will usually do its thing and spread its roots out. So if you feel comfortable enough that you can, loosen the roots without damaging them by breaking them, then it wouldn't be a bad idea to do that. That's a good question. So that's basically all I had today. I'm happy to answer any more questions. We can talk more about some of the benefits of growing your own food at home. I find it to be, a pretty relaxing and stress relieving activity. And once there's nothing like picking a tomato off the vine, or some herbs that you've grown yourself. It just tastes so much better knowing that you grew it yourself. There's just like a satisfaction that comes with growing your own food. I want to know, has anybody grown anything super exotic or different? I see a lot of people growing dill and basil, different herbs, bush beans in the future. Oh, my cat likes cat grass. Yeah, my cat does too, but then she pukes, so I don't like that so much. So what do you say is the best beginner plant for someone starting to garden? So I find that the herbs are really easy. They're low maintenance. They typically tend to do really well, especially if you're growing them inside. Tomatoes, especially the ones that you buy from the nursery or garden center, have a good start to life, meaning that they've been grown under really good conditions, like the grow lights and fertilizer. So the ones that you buy tend to be really healthy rather than starting yourself. So I find tomatoes are pretty easy. What else? Peppers, depending on the year, bell peppers and hot peppers, they like really hot weather. So we've had years where we've had seems like hundreds of peppers, and then next year, if it's more cool and wet, they don't do as well. But they are fairly easy to grow as well. And then there's another question: are there types of soil that you can recommend, or does any soil suffice? So for growing veggies, it's usually just the triple mix tends to work well. There are different, some veggies or plants prefer different types of soil. So for example, like the carrots that I have back there, which you can't see, they like more of looser soil. So you can always ask at the garden center. They'll be really knowledgeable and will tell you, depending on what you want to grow, what type of soil you should get. But usually you can't go wrong with the triple mix. That's a good question. You're welcome. Just seeing if there's any more comments or questions that come in. I wish I could show you my rhubarb, but it's way over there, and I think I would lose Wi-Fi. Just give it a couple more minutes to see if anybody has any other questions or comments. You're welcome. Thank you everyone for attending. This has been really fun. And if you join the Facebook group, I will be posting pictures of my plants. So hopefully when that watermelon plant starts putting out fruit, I'll post some pictures showing how it's doing, its progress, and anything I learn. I've grown watermelon once before, and the raccoons snatched every single one. So that will be my challenge, is trying to not have that happen this time. So the name of the Facebook group is Sheridan Community Garden Club. So it does have a security question or question to join. I'm just double checking the name of it. Sheridan Community Garden Club. So it has a little picture of a tomato on it. So it'll just ask you if you're a current Sheridan employee or student, and then why you're interested in joining in the group. We're not really limiting it to current students, so if alumni want to join as well, or other community members, as long as you're interested in gardening and growing food, then you're welcome to join the club. Thank you for the link. Yes. Will you have a session about planting flowers or succulents? So for this event, I'm only participating today to talk about the environmental wellness. So this was related to the blog post that was shared about environmental wellness. So we're just talking about growing your own food. So I don't know if there's going to be another session with someone else about planting flowers or succulents. But I should say, so there's a ton of resources out there. You can check on YouTube, just do a Google search. There's quite a lot of different videos and articles, books, and tons of information out there about how to grow all different kinds of plants, not just veggies. All right, so I think that will be it for today. Thank you so much for joining me. This has been a lot of fun, and I really enjoyed talking about growing your own food at home, and I hope that I've inspired some of you to grow some veggies at your house. And in future years, hopefully next year, we'll have the actual community garden back up and running, so you can keep an eye out for that and join us on campus next year as part of the Community Garden Club. Thank you so much.